podcast. Just going to jump in. We're talking about print, but yeah, something I also want to touch on is like the perceived value of print.
Right.
Yeah, in the digital age, print's not seen as something that people in marketing or sales want to pursue. Do you think this is overlooked? I mean, if you think of maybe the impressions of a quality-made magazine or book, it's going to be on someone's coffee table. They're going to walk past it, things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can touch on that area. I mean, sometimes you have that response from people that say print, or some people say print's dead. That's a whole other position. It's a bit of a I don't know, just a slogan that people would say, "Oh, print's dead." You know, in some ways maybe it is. News corporate entities are sometimes struggling to get people to pay for news, trying to there's a whole monetization issue. It's pretty broad, you know what I mean? There's newspapers, there's magazines, there's coffee table books, there's academic, you got to think real broadly here, because print is not just the magazine or the cool book, it's also the newspaper, which has struggled. There's a whole season of HBO series by called The Wire that goes through the whole issue of news reporting and newspapers and their sort of like financial turnover. But there's so many types of print, and I guess personally speaking, I've just found that the books that I make really resonate with people. Yeah. And the content's important too. It's kind of like double-handed. You need the good content, you need something substantial, and you need the good presentation, the form and the content. But yeah, there are people who will say that print is a hard thing to make money off, and I'll share with you some stats from the industry. Sometimes published authors don't make that much money off it. Sometimes the big publisher will take most of the money because it's their platform. Yeah. And so sometimes published authors apparently royalties for, I forgot how many copies. There might be a few thousand copies, or 10,000 copies is a bestseller and above. Sometimes they're only making $30,000. And that's a lot of money for a junior. But it's not a lot of money considering some people draft a book and it takes 5-6 years for that book to be finalized, because it goes through so many rounds of a revision and production processes and then finally be released. So sometimes sometimes books and publishing, like when I tell people, they're impressed, and I mean they should be impressed because it is a significant thing, putting things to press and printing something. It takes a lot, you know what I mean? But sometimes even with people that are in the bookshelves you see all over the world, I don't know what the stats are for people who sell millions of books. There's some people who sell millions, though. You go to the airport, you see those books in the airport, they're all around the world. They might be selling millions. Sometimes it's not always a money game. And for me, it's sort of both. It's like, it's the significance of the production value and the impression it gives on people. But for me now, it's turning into a business. So, and sometimes sometimes it's not enough to rely on. Even people that are in the big bookstores are not relying on their income from publishers. Yeah. So, can you make an income off books? I'm trying to, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Can you publish and enjoy it? Yeah, sure you can. If you're a writer or you're a designer, you can make stuff and feel good about it. And that's good. Feeling good is a good part of it. You don't want to feel bad. You're trying to feel good at the end of the day. You're trying to feel good at the end of the day. But can you make a significant amount of money from publishing books? It depends what scale. It depends how big your audience is. It depends how big, like I'm developing a distribution network through my web store, social media and whatever like that. But you got to figure out how far your reach is. You know what I mean? Those books you see at the airports, they're probably sold at airports all around the world, global publications. You always hear about the New York Times bestsellers and stuff. It depends. I don't have all the stats, so I can't give like advice on like the whole industry as a whole, but I do know that some people that are getting publishing deals and selling, I think that's what I heard in this seminar recently. What was it, 10,000 copies or something like that? are only getting $30,000, and that $30,000, I don't know how it's spread over a few years, but that's sort of half of a median salary.
Yeah.
And that's might be spread over
Yes.
the periods. So yeah, so is there money to be made? Yes, there's money to be made. How much money? That's the question. How much money can you make from publishing? And you got to figure that out, whether you're self-published or through a publishing agent or publishing name, and figure it out. I don't have all the questions because again, I've been publishing books for 10 years. You know, in the beginning of that 10 years, and I had a break, and I was doing stuff at uni, and then went through the corporate world, and now I'm publishing again. But now I'm trying to work out the numbers myself. But there is money to be made. Yeah, like there wouldn't be bookstores, there wouldn't be Booktopia, there wouldn't be. Yeah, there's always a market, but it's a big market. It's like selling a T-shirt. There's millions of T-shirts out there. There's millions of books out there. How do you sort of make a book and have a piece of the pie type of thing? Yeah.
Perhaps we could use because I think other people listening, maybe they want to make their own magazine and book.
Yeah.
We could use this idea as a concept, and you could advise me on that, and then other people can kind of learn from this advice. So even with digital creators, I've thought of making a magazine. Like I've interviewed over 100 people, so I was thinking getting selected interviews, the content's already there.
Yeah.
And then turning it into a magazine. But what's holding me back is, I guess, time involved in creating it.
Spending time on it.
Yeah, and then also investment, and then return on investment.
Yeah. You're trying to weigh it up.
Yeah,
trying to weigh it up.
Of course, it's not all about. It's not all about money. Even this, Infinitism wasn't about money, but there was other forms of value that come with that, like culture and networking and.
Oh yeah, it's a piece you can put on a shelf and say that's me. You know, creative directors know in Perth that I've made books early on. So so you want advice in terms of if you had this idea,
advice for this idea, and then other people
out there listening. You know what I mean?
Because there's a few routes you can take. I know you can try to get advertisers on board to invest in maybe
a magazine style sort of thing, editorials,
pages and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I've workshopped with people before, young youth, that had had no knowledge about doing anything like a magazine or anything like that, and I've helped people or shared my advice. Sometimes you just gotta figure out where the audience is, because you gotta figure out where your audience is, because for me, I knew that I have a lot of friends in Perth. I was a social person in my teenage years, so I'm I know heaps of people. I can get great content. I can have a platform like an event to launch my book. And events are great. Even just that one word, events. Events are great. People are doing a lot of events, and people want to get out. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard to personally, I don't attend all the events that I want to go to, but events are a great way to produce some sales. But on top of that, you can create an experience. It's a brand activation. You can curate it. You can frame it the way you put it out there. So events are great. Having launched, I published we can talk about it in a bit, but Get the Met, the book on Melbourne trains. I did that in COVID. So because of COVID, I didn't have a launch event till now. I'm having one this year,
maybe we'll jump into the Met.
That might help. That might help solve your question.
If you talk about how this was created. Talk us through the process.
Yeah. So. A lot of my books I made while I was at uni.
And where did the inspiration and stuff come from?
Inspiration, everything. So the Get the Met book, so G-E-T, the Met, Get the Met. It was a name. It was a name of a commercial about Melbourne trains. Put it there. So I didn't know that I wanted to make a book about Melbourne trains. I've always been interested in trains, like hip hop, New York, graffiti on trains type of thing. Not that I condone that all the time, but I was interested in trains, but it wasn't obvious to me that I was going to make the book about the trains. So I was at uni, they gave us a brief, and the project was supposed to be, supposed to direct students to make a book about an artist or a designer. And then I sort of noticed that everyone's going to choose Picasso or someone they already have heaps of books behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have made a book about an artist that doesn't have a book behind them and, be the first person to publish for an artist. But I said, hey, I'm not even going to choose an individual, a person, an artist or a designer. I'm going to make it about a subject, and that subject which I brainstormed, you know, at the library at university in Melbourne, not the University of Melbourne, Swinburne Uni. I just brainstormed, and I was like, trains, it's so obvious. I was taking the train to uni every day, and I was like, hey, I'm going to do about trains. I didn't know that it would sell really well. Because I only published it in COVID. I made the book in 2014 when I was in uni, before I graduated in 2015. I only published it years later. But I knew that it was a significant topic, and there was something there that was like, okay, there's like the train models that are running now, but then there's train models that have been phased out. There's cool train tickets. Everyone loves collecting the train tickets in Melbourne, or not, some people do. There's a history behind it. And when I looked into it, you know, there's the whole like, it was government owned and then it became like privatized. And there was something there, you know, there's a significant idea, and that comes back to award school. It comes back to having a concept. It comes back to having a substantial like grounding for your work. And that was significant for me. And they say sometimes one idea can make your career. And I think publishing on books hopefully could be my main focus for many years, publishing books on trains. And yeah, so anyway, so I made the idea, and it was a university project. It was the other way around. It was portrait. Yeah. And when I published it, I decided landscape because I was like, oh, that's better. It might have been actually a requirement of the uni project to make it portrait maybe, and that's why I did a portrait. I may have wanted to do it landscape. But I made it, and it was my idea was great, and I know it because my lecturers put my project with a few other outstanding projects on the lecture slide when we were at uni, and were like, you know, these are some of the best ideas that have come out. So, I basically did it. It was great. I enjoyed it. I knew there was a lot there. I was like, man, I can make a whole campaign out of this. And basically it sat on my hard drive. I had like 1 or 2 copies of it that I produced for uni to submit because I was a part of the assessment. But so yeah, did it in 2014, sat on my hard drive from 2014 till 2020. And it was kind of random. I was just like, it was COVID just happened. And I was like, I need to just do this. Like, let me see if I can start taking pre-orders to get the money for the printing, because I didn't have the money at the time. Pre-orders. I'd just been working in corporate, sort of just contract to contract. So I sort of threw myself in the deep end. I don't mind sharing that. I put the book up for pre-order before I'd finalized it for production, which was okay. I had a prototype, had the content. It was more just like I didn't spend time preparing it right to the end and then pre-order it, because I was like, what if it doesn't work out? What if that's a possibility? You might put it up and hey, nobody's spending on train books or don't want it. But it's the first book on Melbourne trains in this era. So there's different eras of trains. So it sold really well. Did you just put it up on social media and then paid for like an ad to go out and see interest? All organic, so which is surprising. How did you promote the first idea of it? Well, it's through my Instagram page. Just Instagram? Yeah, just my Instagram. Organic, like, meaning I didn't pay for advertising. Yeah. But what I did do is, I don't know if I did this on the first or second print run, but I messaged shops or bookstores, some of these are art supply stores, if I give them a copy of the book, like a free copy of the book, can you just do a social media post for me? And they did that, and it sold crazy. I sold 50 copies in like 2 weeks. And it was the first drop. It might have been 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Wow. Sold out almost immediately. Outstanding reception of the book. I distributed those 50 copies, or then I had to backtrack, I had to finish making the book. That means getting all the permissions from the photographers, because this was just a uni book. This wasn't to go commercial. So I had to get all the permissions from the photographers, tracking them down, making a deal with them, giving them some reimbursement, finalizing everything, getting how much is the printing going to cost. How did you manage that with the photographers? Because that would have been quite tricky, navigating them and then coming up with a deal. Like, do they get royalties or? I can't say on. I can't give out that information on the podcast. But let's just say that, you know, like one photographer in the book has like a big chunk of the images. Yeah. And then other people just have one or two images. Yeah. So some people have different quantities of images. So I got permission from all of them. It wasn't hard negotiating because, like, it's not a big production, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I just had to get their permission, and sometimes getting the original files from them, like the high quality resolution files. And yeah, so I figured out a way to reimburse them and to make up for their contribution to the book, because yes, I don't agree with publishing, images that are not permissioned. Like, okay, in a uni project, something that's just design, you're not making money out of it, then yeah, you can just do it for uni. But once something is commercial, then yes, you have to get permissions from everybody, and that's what I had to do. I had to track down everybody and ask them for their permission, get the original files. So that was a big part of it, because it's kind of like a photography book about trains, but then it's got the branding and the history and the train tickets and everything. But yeah, so that's sort of what I had to do, and then getting the printing, and then receiving the books in COVID, and you were allowed to go to the post office. Thank God you were just at least allowed to get out of the house in COVID in Melbourne. I went through all the lockdowns there for a few years, but yeah, got the books, distributed them. Sold 50 real quick, and then I printed like 100 within weeks later. So it was like 150 books done just like that. And yeah, sold really well. I knew there was something behind it, but again, like one of my lecturers was like, oh, maybe it's a great idea, but maybe don't bother doing it. If I never put this to print, I would have, or never tested it on the market and see if it sold through pre-orders, I wouldn't know like if it sold. It's a great idea. There's plenty of great ideas. This is the thing, when people come to me with ideas, and sometimes they want me to design for them and they want me to collaborate, you know what I mean? But when you come to a publisher, and I am a publisher, my publishing name is 4 Letter Press. We'll get to that in a second, but I'm launching that this year. I made the name in 2020, but I haven't properly marketed it yet. But yeah, people come to me with ideas, and everybody has ideas, and ideas are great. But when it's turning into a commercial project, you have to figure out the commercial viability, and that commercial viability has processes and parts of it that you got to figure out. But yeah, you got to figure out, okay, I've got a great idea. How can I make it commercial? Like, there's some people, they just want to break even and have fun. That's fine. Yeah. But hey, I'm like a lot of us are. We're working professionals. We're trying to make an income or something off our work. Yes. You know what I mean? We're trying to. Everybody needs money, and money is a currency to survive. Our whole, especially with, this, they call it feudal capitalism. What we're in now, it's beyond capitalism. But everybody needs money, so you need to make it commercially viable. And this is the thing, like, I'm still figuring out a way that I can rely on publishing or selling books as a main income. But it's not like, some people might sell a book and hey, I've got an income and I've got a, 6-figure thing, or I've got a salary based off it just like that. But not everybody has that. And I've been quite lucky, and I haven't got to that yet. So you have to, even when it's good, sometimes it's not all there. You might not have the whole picture figured out. You definitely have to have commercial viability, So that's what I've done with this book, you know what I mean? Like, it comes with little train tickets and stickers which add to it. So that's another tip. If you're going to do a book or you want to start doing something, everybody just does a book. But how about you put a poster with it? How about you sell a mug with it? How about you just do little add-ons that add value to it and make it look different? And yeah, so that's what I've done. And so far it's sold really well. It's sold hundreds of copies. And it's stocked at respected bookstores like Readings in Curtin. Curtin is like the Italian restaurant strip in Melbourne, just near the city. And it's stocked at many stores around Australia. And I've had to do everything myself. And that's another thing, like, I have to touch on that issue of not doing everything yourself. It's good to work with people, and a few more people, or something. It's good to keep it small, but it's good to divide the work. But at the same time, I don't know, the way that I was trained at uni was to do everything yourself. And it's a very corporate way of thinking, because in the corporate world, it's you're doing everything yourself. And in the business world, I sort of do that myself. I do all my advertising. I do so many things myself, from A to Z. I do it all myself. But it's important to do that, because sometimes people have this idea that a business will just make itself. I mean, if your dad owns a big company and it just runs like a well-oiled machine and it's pumping out money, yeah, that's making money without your input. But if you want to do something yourself, you have to really commit yourself. You really got to put in the work. And it's like anything, I've started DJing recently because I've been collecting vinyl for a few years, but I realized that if I want to start making beats, if I want to start DJing, I got to put in the time. Yeah. Especially if I want to go beyond the surface level of something. You might scratch the surface of something, but I like to go deep into something, you know, like
Core concept.
at least know and then act, like have that practical knowledge. So that's my biggest advice, because I see people that like that want to do stuff but don't want to put in the work. It's like you just want stuff to just come out of thin air. You just want to make smoke and it's just fireworks. No, like you need to get the fireworks ready. You got to get the fireworks. If you're making the, I'm not saying make fireworks, but just metaphorically, you need to make the magic get ready to happen.
Yeah, you need to take action.
Yeah, because everybody wants to be the boss now. This whole idea of I want to be a CEO.
Yeah.
I want to be the boss. I have never thought of myself as, oh, I'm the boss, of my work. It's like a control thing. Like, it's good to be a boss. It's good to be in control. It's good to feel like a CEO. It's not bad. But there's this idea that I just want to be in control and people just do stuff for me.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception, because even I saw something and it was like, oh, you think you're going to be a freelancer and you're not going to have a boss? It's like technically each client is sort of like your boss in a way, so you can't like you can't just do everything with your own, everything you make.
Yeah. Like eventually, like everyone, like if you're a married man, you got a wife, or you got a husband, or whatever.
Other
like
stakeholders involved.
There's
Even with
stakeholders,
this book, like there were photographers, stakeholders, or like maybe you had other stakeholders.
Yeah. So well, there's like.
And you're thinking about your target
there's the
audience
printer,
as a
I've got to work with the printer. There's, ultimately, the success of my publication is based on the quality foremost, but it's also based on, sales. And it's not sales like I just want money all the time. Everybody needs money, but it's more just, obviously the more sales you get is an indicator that, okay, I see how big the market is. And that's an indicator for you. If you sell books, if you sell 50 in a short amount of time, that's an indication that there's something there. If you struggle to sell like more than 20 copies, you're either not doing your marketing right, you're not tapping into the audience, or it doesn't have legs. So you just got to figure out like where's your audience, where's the value and stuff like that. And I think that's what you were asking. Was
yeah, and maybe jump into telling us about Four Letter
Press. Yeah.
So is this the first publication under Four Letter Press? Will you say, or Four Letter Press hasn't officially launched, or like where are you at with that? How did it come to be?
Sure, just have a drink. So, Four Letter Press, the name, I made it up in 2020. I'd made the logo. That was like the first part, and there's a lot behind a logo. It's not just. Sometimes designers get stuck in the world of colors and fonts, which is great, but there's a lot behind a company, which I'm still building because I've only decided to launch my publishing company this year. And technically speaking, this is the only book that's been added from Four Letter Press, because when I did Infinitism magazine, I didn't think of Four Letter Press because it just didn't occur to me that I should make a publishing name. But now that I want to, there's a few books I want to publish. I can't mention what they are. But there's a few books, local and international books I want to make, and I need a company name to stand behind myself. Yeah. That's what represents me. Sometimes when I go places, people know me as the Four Letter Press guy.
Yeah.
So that's going to launch this year. There's going to be a launch party. Venue and details going to be released in the next following months.
Melbourne,
it's going to be Perth. Yeah, I still need to do stuff in Melbourne again because of COVID. Like I didn't have the funds to launch it because you need a budget for an event. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was just too busy, just making due and stuff like that. And now I've finally got to the point where I can invest budgets into events and things like that. So it's going to be a Perth launch, but the launch event is going to be cool. This is a bit of a preview, a bit of the marketing behind it. But at the launch, I'm going to do a presentation. In that presentation is going to be the background of Infinitism magazine, the origins of the beginning of my publishing journey, and then just a bit of my personal journey, and then the Get the Met book, which has been you could call it an independent bestseller.
Yeah,
it's almost at that level, pretty much. And I'm going to do a presentation. So people that are interested, if you're watching this, just follow me on Instagram, Jourdan Creative, Google Jourdan Creative.
I'll leave it down in the description.
Yeah, leave it down in the description. So I'm going to do a presentation. There's going to be a limited numbers. So if you are interested, reach out. I can put your name down. But yeah, so I want to launch Four Letter Press. That's my publishing name, and I'm specializing in niche topics. Like, again, like, that's one angle you can have. You don't have to be niche, but I chose to be based on my intuitive, creative thinking. So Four Letter Press is going to represent all the books that I do. There's going to be a launch party, and so I'm planning to publish, many books, and that's a part of trying to make. I mean, it's about the creative content and the stories and everything that goes into the book itself, the product. But it's also, like to make a decent income from books. One of the points I got recently is that you need to have a catalog.
Yeah, for sure.
A catalog of when you go to a clothes store, like you go to Chanel or these like they have a catalog. It's like everybody gets a catalog in the mail of the shopping. You get Kohl's catalog. That's how they make money. They don't just have one product sitting in the middle of a page. They have different products. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to aim at for at the moment.
Okay, so it's like
a catalog. Yeah, Four Letter Press, and under Four Letter Press will be all these niche topic books. And who knows, I'll take it wherever I want to take it. That's a part of my creative direction.
Could be Australia, New York.
Yeah, it could be international, you know what I mean? I was traveling the world at a young age. I went to New York when I was 16. We can get into that, but yeah, I grew up with aerosol art, skateboarding in Perth, here, Melbourne, New York.
Street culture.
Traveling around, street culture, hip hop. I've always been a big hip hop head, so I sort of weave all my interests into one thing. And like I've worked in corporate, so I also have that corporate image behind myself, and not just the image, but the skills, the time, the contacts, the time, everything that I've invested in. So I've got many different dimensions to myself personally, and then my publishing name. Yeah, like I'm only releasing it now because I didn't really market it. I only just got like a TikTok page for Four Letter Press. I only just made an Instagram page for Four Letter Press, and eventually I'll have other marketing channels for it. But
so I think with books like Get the Met, you don't have advertising, so you can't.
Or like in the book.
Yeah, you don't have like advertising
space.
In the book.
It's not a magazine. Usually when there's ads, that usually is a magazine. Generally speaking.
With the magazines, it's more like frequent editions.
Oh yeah, difference between a book and a periodical magazine. Yeah.
So, with books, you almost need the funding up front, like almost yourself. It's either you need to get like
you need to get pre-orders.
Or fundraising.
Yeah, or your own money.
Invest
in it yourself.
But with magazines, you can sell pages for advertisers.
Yeah, you can do that. I tried that a little bit. I never had any ads in my Infinitism magazine. Again, because I kind of feel like some of the people I was speaking to, and I was like, that I know had companies in Perth, were like, I don't think they trusted that I was actually going to make a magazine. They didn't believe in me, basically.
Yeah.
So it was like when you haven't really established a long-standing magazine, like if you haven't produced like a catalog and you go, hey, do you want to have ads in my publication that has no audience? You know what I mean? How can you sell that? You need to, like, when you're selling ad space, like they want to know how many eyes are on the page.
Data.
Yeah, and when I've seen people from News Corp, like in Melbourne, give us presentations like in award school about all the stats behind it. That's high level, major news network, sort of like. Like I don't know what they call it, like reach and readership stats. Yeah. So if you're trying to sell ad space, you need an audience, or you need to be showing that you're going to be building an audience. You know what I mean? So that's another thing. You know what I mean? Because ads are ads, but I don't know. Some people might just give you money. I'm not. Hey, if people are just going to throw money away for an ad and they're not going to ask questions, take that money and put it into your book. But yeah, some people will go, well, how many copies are you producing? How many people are going to see it? What's your audience, or how big do you think your audience is going to be? If you have a website, maybe you can offer a bit of the website, But then again, that does add a level of, it's not bad. Sometimes ads are a business model.
It makes it less of a timeless because that ad's going to age.
There's a sort of like external, like it's ads. It's like you open the newspaper.
External
there's ads.
Influence.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I'm just saying that it does. There's a difference between like a book like mine, Infinitism magazine, that has no ads, and maybe it doesn't need it, and then a book that just has heaps of ads, and that's how they pay for the printing, because that whole business model is based on ads, and I've heard people have challenges with that.
I want to
trying to keep that
want to
going.
learn how to get advertisers on board for something, whether it's like a magazine or even this like podcast, like because I feel like I could have ads on this podcast, for example, advertise.
Some people do that on podcasts a lot.
Or,
Yeah.
I really don't know where to start, to be honest. Like I never really thought of monetizing, but then
you just need
there's potential for it.
There's potential. You just need numbers. Anything to do with commercial sales.
But it's like my
numbers.
view count or whatever. It's quite low, but then I think the people who do listen are in a specific niche industry.
Sometimes quality, not quantity, right?
Yeah, so it's hard to...
Yeah, it depends.
Navigate.
Like, you never know. Like, sometimes, I don't know, you got to figure out, like, you may have friends that have products that you can do a little deal with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Figure out a deal. Figure out a deal. Not like people doing stuff for free. I'm totally against people doing stuff either for free or a very low cost.
Yes.
Like below average. I don't believe in that. People should be getting paid an average amount or higher.
Yep.
But yeah, figure it out. You just got to negotiate.
Play around with it.
What can you offer them and what they can offer you, and that's how business works.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all about readership, So for me, for example, my website is starting to have a lot of views because heaps of people come to my website mainly to look at the book.
Yeah.
Heaps of people, like only a percentage buy it, but there's hundreds and thousands of people that come to my website. And, will I have advertising on my website? I don't know. Like, do I need it? Will I make much money from it? What am I offering them? You know what I mean? You need a captive audience. That's an important term in the industry, captive audience. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're building it. That takes time. If you start a podcast, you need to build your audience. That takes consistent effort over months, years, and, takes time. Like for me, I think my website, when I was just using my website just to get corporate jobs, it was just getting viewed by employers. So it was a very small amount of viewers. I think I used to check the Google Analytics, and it wasn't much because I wasn't driving people to my website.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like people would do random stuff. I just did a dance on TikTok just to drive people to my page. Who thought like publisher guy wants to do a little jig dance on TikTok? Like that's what TikTok was made for.
Marketing's so funny now.
Yeah.
There's the latest thing I'm seeing now is two types of ways of people marketing. One is just a simple video, no music, no style of like the thing, like a product or whatever.
A bit more sophisticated
so
sort of thing.
It stands out because social media is now like music and advertising,
and
then when you see
there's
this
an algorithm
video,
what they'll favor, right?
It stands out. And then the other one is on Instagram now. It's wild. It's like either there'll be like a fight or someone in like a motorcycle accident or something.
Just crazy stuff,
and then they'll have the product. So either they'll pretend that there's a fight and then they'll like actually sell the product, or they'll start off with this scene of like a motorcycle accident and then they'll turn it into their own video. So it's getting quite crazy.
Yeah, it's elusive. That's always been there. Like creative advertising is based on having a hook, hooking people's attention and then driving. So like there's also your brand. So like, because I have a brand, I don't want to be doing TikTok dances every day, but I'll throw one in there and see how it runs. Why not, what I mean? So if you have a brand and you want to try to protect that brand and there's a reputation and you want to protect things around it, there's things you may and may not do. But for me, it's like, again, it comes back to captive audience. Like, I mean, that TikTok dance I did, people in Melbourne are talking about it, but I've only got like 20 followers. But like, there's a few dozen people are talking about it in other cities. But yeah, like when you do stuff, you just got to figure out like what your brand, represents. Does it fit into your brand thing? And there's a whole thing around brand. I don't know. Sometimes it's like, I love branding is my expertise. I studied it and I carried on with it. But sometimes brand can be convoluted. People are like, you need a self-brand, and that's true to a degree. Like you could call your personality a brand, you could call your thing, but this whole thing of like brand yourself, everything's branding. Like it's not very organic. It comes from I'm from a marketing background, but like think about who you are. Are you just a like organic individual, and you want to have some like overarching corporate brand? Like what's your position in the world? You know what I mean? Because like not everything needs a brand. There's so many companies that don't have a marketing budget because all their money goes into research for cancer.
Yeah.
or their money goes into products, or their money goes into infrastructure like truck companies, people that deliver stuff. You know what I mean? All those like delivery companies like DHL, they still do ads, but Ozpost, you know, they still have advertising. But sometimes like you got to figure out who you are in the world, and sometimes this whole thing of like you need to brand yourself. Well, what are you branding? Who are you? What's the substance that you're branding? You know what I mean?
think
Like
an example of that would be, say, you're like a graphic designer or something. At the end of the day, like maybe you just want to get a job as a graphic designer.
You just may need employment.
You don't have to be like this graphic designer superstar, which you don't need to be.
And
so
a lot of the superstars don't have time to do podcasts like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So exactly.
It's like, I think it's achieving what you want. If you want to be a superstar, cool. I guess that's what you want to do. But also, it's okay to not be this like
in the limelight like we are sitting now. You know, exactly. This is my first podcast. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't itching to get on a podcast when they first came around. You know, they started in the early 2000s, I think late 90s. But yeah, you got to figure out what do you want. Sometimes if you just want that job and you just want those connections, sometimes you're behind the scenes, you're behind the curtain, you're doing stuff in the background. People aren't watching you, but you're doing stuff. And a lot of important people are not seen in the daylight, metaphorically speaking. They're behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, I've seen it in skate stores. I walked into a skate store that I've been going to for years, and I was like, who are you? He's like, he was humble. He didn't say, hey, I'm the guy that makes this shop run perfectly in all the locations. He was just like, oh, I do stuff in the background, and I'm mainly in other places. Sometimes people calling the shots, the real bosses, and they're behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the time, it's true.
They're behind the scenes.
And the ones in front are just like they're being paid to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I want to be on more podcasts to promote what I'm doing and whatever. It's promotion or it's it's a conversation, it's content or whatever. But yeah, this whole thing around like maybe because that's just my personality. You know, I come from a place where creative directors and people who make global campaigns wear t-shirts. People that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars on accounts, you know, we're talking like there may be millions of dollars on accounts, wear t-shirts. You know, not that wearing t-shirts, you know, we all want to look like Mark Zuckerberg, that we're like billionaires, but like it's not always like about, like, yeah, you need to dress nicely, but yeah, this whole idea of I need to brand myself, like throwing business cards everywhere, like sometimes you got to think like, who am I? What do I want to mean to people? What's my reach and what type of thing? You got to think about it. You know what I mean? Like people shouldn't just be on this, you know, people that give like advice and say, you need to be posting social media posts every day and doing heaps of stuff. Well, maybe not everybody needs a social media post every day.
Yeah. You
have to know who you are and your place in the world to know what suits you, what matters to you, you know? I recently met someone who's in a very high position in the advertising world overseas. And I haven't heard much about him, but now I do. And I did this property brochure for a client that he saw, drone photography, you know, proper, you know, agency level property brochure. And he complimented me on my work. That one compliment, this guy was a chairman. A chairman is not the guy who runs one office. He runs multiple companies.
Yeah.
He's a global individual. You know what I mean? This is like high level management, and he's respecting my work.
Yeah.
That was enough for me to just like stop what I'm doing. Like I'm still going to do work, but it's just like I had a chairman.
Yeah.
This is above the CEO. Like this is not even like, this is above the creative directors. Yeah. This is above, this is like high level stuff. And when I have high level people complimenting my work and going, yeah, this guy has skill, then that's the validation. I wasn't always craving it, but now when people give it to you, you thank them and say, thank you, I appreciate the compliment. And, you know, stuff like that gives me perspective. You know what I mean? And this is a thing. There will be people that may disrespect your work or like slight it, but just don't trust those people because everybody's, when they're a graduate, their work's not going to be as good as someone who's been in the industry like myself 12 years. Like my grad stuff was good. Like, you know, there was good stuff. I was a natural at it, but you can't let people like early on discourage you, or people that slight your work, you know what I mean? Because yeah, like there's haters, there's always haters. But yeah, you just gotta, I had to wait 12 years and do a bunch of work and work consistently and then go overseas and meet someone who is above all the people that I've met in my life. You know, like someone who's a chairman who manages multiple offices. Like they have bird's eye view, and they know what's happening at the top all the way down to the bottom. Generally speaking, if they're a good, you know, thing. So, yeah, know who you want compliments from. Know who you want value from, and just keep doing what you're doing. I wasn't expecting that this guy that I met overseas was going to give me a compliment or meet me or talk about advertising and all this sort of stuff. But you never know what you're doing in your small little corner at home, working in your home office. It's gonna end up like some of my work has started conversations in conferences in Dubai.
Yeah.
I've been to New York.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I've been, you know. So you never know what your little thing that you're doing locally. This is another thing.
Yeah,
some people, they're all about international stuff. International is great. It's about reach and it's about being global. That's the world. That's the world now. We live in a globalized world. But I can't stress the importance enough of local stuff. Whether it's local award shows, if you want to go for awards, local music, local talent, local designers, stuff that's localized. That's what makes it significant. You think people in New York, like before New York was New York, like New York became famous for several reasons. There was Wall Street and stuff. But some people in America, you think, oh, America's so great. Well, maybe those people over there, they don't even think, like they may think I'm, you know, a global city when they live in New York. There's that part of that thing. But you never know, like being in your little city, like Perth, you never know like what that means in the world.
Yeah.
because like, yeah, you never know who's going to see it. Like I didn't know people in like, I did some social media and branding for a community organization. There was a conference in Dubai and they were like, yeah, they're all talking about your social media. I was like, how did they know? We barely have any followers, like a few hundred followers on Instagram, but it doesn't take much to start conversations, and conversations that's an indicator of substance and ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of the best conversation pieces are from more like timeless styles of content, like a book or just a photograph. Because
true.
when you think, this is what I was thinking the other day, when you think of a house, you're not going to put videos or TikToks on your wall, like videos on your wall. You put photos, like a singular photograph, or you put a book
or an artwork, an
artwork, because it kind of sits there and it's not too distracting, and you want to create like this atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Same with books. You want a book on your coffee table. You don't want a video or something like
loud. So exactly. Even those like little digital photo albums, they were sort of, they're still around, but
exactly. Maybe they're not even around. Like I'd never see them now.
Yeah, they're random. Like I got one like years ago, but like I didn't even use it that much. It was just a digital photo album. But
where do you have the most?
Stuff.
Where do you have the most important conversations? It's in like lounge rooms, coffee rooms, cafes, and that's where you see
university halls.
You see books and artwork. So But the only thing is, on social media videos, you can see the views and the likes and the comments, but with books and photographs, you can never actually figure out how. You can't.
What stats do I know, right?
But you don't know how much influence
how to measure.
you could have.
Yeah, because you got to be able to measure. With a website, you can measure visits.
Yeah.
With a book, I can't measure
impressions.
Yeah, I can measure how many people have visited my website, seen my book, but I don't know. Like I don't know all the other stuff.
Maybe you should have a QR code and it tracks inside.
Yeah, like this is the whole thing. Like if you want to start getting into commerciality and like commercial operations, like knowing all the information you can find out is great. But you're right. Like if someone looks at a painting, how can you measure how many times someone looked at a painting?
It's only over time that you can kind of figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't know. There's all this technology now with AI and cameras that can track your eye movement. And, you know, who knows? There's all sorts of ways. But yeah, you're right. Like people want simple stuff when you go to a house as an artwork or a photograph or a book on the table. And doing work that, you know, creates conversation. That's one of the biggest drivers of advertising is conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
because it's hard because you got all these corporate brands. Do people like have a like intimate memory of their cornflakes? You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, I love cornflakes. Like sometimes these corporate brands are trying to like get the attention and conversation of people that it's really hard. They have to come up with all these creative ideas and creative ways that hopefully have some benefit to the viewer, so that they can engage their product and lead to their product or add to their product, you know, things. So, yeah, there's all sorts of ways you've got to figure out how can I draw people in, you know, and sometimes in advertising, that's a challenge because, you know, it's almost said like advertising is like a clown that comes to your door. You know, you see advertising coming a mile away, but are you going to let that advertising into your house and watch it? You know,
true.
like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time we have.
Yeah, that's all good. Yeah.
But no, thanks so much for coming on
Good.
the podcast and sharing Get the Met. Where can
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
find out more about you and what you do and everything like that?
Yeah, so jordancreative.com/shop. The shop page is where my products are. So my name is spelled Jourdan, creative, and I'm on Instagram, Jourdan Creative, just that handle, and those are my main platforms, and yeah, keep an eye out for updates, and I'll be launching my publishing name with an event this year.
And you open for collaborations, people to DM you, things like that?
Yeah, if people want advice, if you want advice about publishing, if you're thinking about making a book, I can either give you advice or help you with the design. You know, I offer design services for books, and I am starting to design books for other people. So if you need design, if you need advice, I'm able to help you. And especially if you're in Perth, I'm always able to help people who are local. And yeah, if you just want to chat about design, branding, advertising, I can just hit me up on my DM, Jourdan Creative with a U, Jourdan, creative, and jordancreative.com. Send me an email or send me a message. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again.